Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 453. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Well, hello there, Noah. Guess what? We have ourselves, well, a show that's going to be rough for Chris. It's going to be pretty good for Noah and rough for Chris. We're going to own up to our 2016 predictions, play back what we thought was going to happen, and own up to how it went. You guys asked for it. You said yes, so okay, we're going to do it, unfortunately. But in the news segment, we're going to talk about some good news for Steam, some important stuff for OpenEMR, interesting things about where Android apps are going to be running soon, and all kinds of stuff. Plus, we have kind of an overall theme that we'll be really landing on in the feedback section for the whole episode. And I'm going to wait to tell you what it is till the end of the episode, just so I don't upset Noah, because I think he wants to surprise you. Yeah? Or are you okay if I tell him now?
Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, because it kind of flows right into our...
Picks!
Yeah, the picks.
Picks,
Yeah,
Picks. That's not the way you set it up, though. You set it up wrong. So
I know,
quite
because we're
jive.
doing something that flows right in Noah sense. It's the ultimate Linux desktop, and it's all about building a bulletproof Linux. Now, that's where we're going with this, is there's going to be, along with owning up to our predictions this week, an overall arcing theme to this episode about bulletproofing Linux. Both Noah and I recently had our main workstations that we always sit down at with the expectation of working. They both blew up. Not going to say Arch. Did that just get awkward? Did that just get weird?
Yeah.
Oh. So anyways, we have been kicking back and forth in our own, Telegram thread about how would you build a Linux distribution that's bulletproof, something where very little failure is likely to occur from an update or for an application changing or application getting an update. How would you build something like that? And so we're going to kick it off with the Runs Linux. This is, how would you say, Frizzell? Jesse Frizzell's?
I just said Jesse F.
Good call. Jesse F's Ultimate Linux build. Over the past couple of years, he set out to create the ultimate Linux on the desktop experience. And he's got a whole bunch of stuff in here, but the short version is base Debian OS with kind of a container approach for a lot of applications, which I cringed at originally, but have been thinking more about recently. And I even kind of brought it up in last week's episode of the show at the end. And I got some good feedback from people, so thank you for that. So he says currently he's using X11, but he's going to be moving to Wayland. Everything is in containers. The problem with Docker and runc is today is they're not they must run as root. So that's something that you need to consider. So I don't know. I'm not so sure how I feel about that at the moment, but there's probably a lot of different ways. Also virtualization. I'm still looking into this myself. He says also that he looked at Core OS as a possible strategy to go with. I don't know. This is a fascinating theory that we'll talk more about throughout the whole freaking show. But bulletproof Linux seems to be on a couple of people's mind. Noah, where did you come across this just while we were talking about it? Did you go do some digging? What happened?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly where I came. It was somewhere in my stumbling around. I found it, but it's one of those things where there's a lot of people that do some really cool things with setting up their boxes, but then when they go to document it, one of two things happen: either the documentation is woefully underwhelming, and they just basically say, "Yeah, I set up a box and it worked really well," or they go into like extreme levels of detail that makes their blog post unreadable. And this is a quick read, and I think he does a really good job of hitting the important points if you want to replicate his setup.
Yeah, and also
give you enough information to know how to do that.
Also, it's interesting that he compares a little Debian and Core OS. So if you're just kind of looking at maybe going like with Debian stable or something like that, to see the chat room also talking about Gentoo right now. You in the chat room with the Gentoo stuff. I don't even understand. But before we go any further, maybe I'll just build a desktop in the cloud over at DigitalOcean.com. DigitalOcean.com, when you create an account, use our promo code, Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it. Here's the thing. You apply that, you get a $10 credit. Now you're cooking with gas. 3 cents an hour gets you a hell of a rig. Lots of performance, all SSD drives, regardless of the system you get. 40 gigabit E connections into the hypervisors. I love the setup because you can do monthly, you can do hourly, you can expand as you need it up. They have crazy high memory droplets that have like nearly 230, 240 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's way, way up there. Plus block storage you can attach as you need it, up to 16 terabytes of SSD storage on your droplet, and then an interface that makes managing and doing all of this possible for total rookies or longtime experts. DigitalOcean.com. Go there and check out their brand new well, I guess it's not launched yet. So sign up. Go there and sign up, I should say, for their new load balancing system. This is so cool, man. Load balancers, of course, automatically distribute incoming traffic across your infrastructure, and you can manage it all right there in the DigitalOcean control panel. No API, nothing that kind of crazy stuff. It's just going to help improve your availability and response time, and they have data centers all over the world: New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany, India, and they're bringing more online all the time. Then they back it all up with just an amazing set of documentation, some of the best on the web. Really good. Really, really good performance, really good customers. I mean, great company, great customer service, great community, great UI, great API. They've really nailed this setup. And I really like that they originally invested in SSDs before everybody else. So now it's just like everything's standard. Everybody's had to catch up. DigitalOcean really kind of just sort of blew them all away. Look at all those data centers. I should do one in Singapore. Then I would feel like a baller, Noah. Do you have any outside the U.S. right now? I have one in London.
No, I don't. I did once just to try it, I think, but for the most part, I don't have any reason to access data on the other side of the ocean. Yeah. So it's not very useful to me. But
check this out. Did you notice? Did you notice you can speed test the data centers on their website so you know what? Look at that.
Which one does faster? Yeah.
I'm going to speed test the San Francisco 2. I didn't know that. That is awesome. I'm going to do a 100 megabyte file test from my Comcast connection right now over to DigitalOcean. That is so freaking cool. Huh. They got a great setup. They got the load balancers coming soon if you want to sign up. They got awesome documentation over in their community section. One of the things I like is they have a really great community. And the reason why that matters to you as a customer is their community is writing documentation and the good stuff. DigitalOcean's hired professional editors. They bring in the good stuff written by the community, pay those community members, and then edit it all up. Here's how to create a cluster of Docker containers. Perfect for Noah on Ubuntu 16.04. Lots of really good stuff. Oh, there's some CentOS stuff on here too. I love it.
Excellent.
They got FreeBSD stuff. Debian. Here's some Debian stuff on here. It's good. It's just so much good stuff. Digital. In fact, you don't even have to really be a digital. I'm not going to. Don't say it. Don't tell them Chris told you that. But you don't really have to be a DigitalOcean customer to enjoy this stuff. You can still go to their website, check out what they have to offer, and explore the documentation too. And if you do sign up, use our promo code. Here's the thing. DigitalOcean.com. Big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. This came in just right over the weekend. Hot off the presses, Noah. It's a fork. KeyPass XC. Ding, 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 ding. The community edition. And this one has some nice fancy features. I'm not a big KeyPass user myself, but boy, if I had worked in an IT department or if I had a group of people in my, I could actually see using it here at the studio now that I think about it. I could see some uses for it. What about you?
So I recently switched from, I was using the built-in password manager for Firefox, and I've actually just switched. And the thing is,
oh really?
It actually, the built-in form completion works great. But one of the things is my bookmarks were starting to get ridiculous, like literally hundreds of thousands of bookmarks inside of it, and just getting it to sync was a pain. And so if I was going to discontinue using Firefox Sync for that, then that kind of broke my whole. I could have continued to do it just for passwords, so that seemed kind of weird. So I decided I was going to manage bookmarks in one way, and I was going to do passwords in another way. So I started using KeyPass, and I'm using Nextcloud to sync my KeyPass database throughout all my machines. And so far, it's working fantastically, including on Android. There's actually KeyPass on Android. And so when I saw that there was a new fork of KeyPass, it's kind of cool. The thing is, if you're using it on Arch, one thing that's really important, every other distro, when you install KeyPass X, it installs KeyPass 2. And on Arch, they still have KeyPass, and then you have to choose to install KeyPass 2. And I thought Nextcloud had corrupted my KeyPass database because I had installed the wrong version. It's a
database incompatibility. Yeah. So this is a community.
But then it works.
KeyPass XC, C for community, is a fork of KeyPass X, which aims to incorporate the stalled pull request features and bug fixes that never made it into the main KeyPass X repository. Additional features: KeyPass HTTP support for use with PassFox. And that was a big thing for me, was because so that was a big thing for me. It no longer auto completes, and the tie-in to Firefox obviously doesn't work. And so I'm hoping that this fixes that, and I'll be able to actually use it now. That's pretty cool. I mean, they seem to be off to a good start. It looks like a core team of 3, which is probably reasonable. I would love to always see stuff like this get audited by third parties and stuff like that, but you can find it at, wow, that's a heck of a URL, KeyPass xreboot.github.io, or just get the link in the show notes if you like. Good pick though. I think that's fresh off. Isn't that just fresh off the presses? As I think it was. I was traveling this weekend, but I think as I was coming in, I was checking the subreddit and I saw people submitting that. So we pledged to kick off the distribution of the week. And I guess we were supposed to do it last week, and I thought it started this week. So Chris is bad. And I thought this is going to be a challenge, because one of the things I want to do in the distribution of the week is I would love to highlight distributions that a lot of you don't know about, or at least haven't tried. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that every single week. And so I thought I would also amend this, and Noah, you feel free to share any input you like. We can do this if you want to change it. But I thought we could do is not only distributions that we really haven't heard a lot of before, but maybe we'd also do distributions that deserve another look or need an update from us, like something that So I thought maybe we'd kick off the distribution of the week with a distribution that is personally important to me for two reasons. Number one, it's when I embrace mispronouncing distribution names. So there's that. Number two, we haven't really talked about it since 2011. And it's still going strong. They had a release at the beginning of the month. Ladies and gentlemen, our first distribution of the week, Shaka Raka Bing Bang Linux. It's a GNU/Linux distribution with an emphasis on KDE and Qt that focuses on simplicity from a technical standpoint and free software. It's not just like a fork of Arch. It's not like Manjaro or Anagros. It is its own beast. Shaka Raka 2016.02, the Ian edition. Oh, 2016. It's not 2016 anymore. It's 2017. Well, still, what are you gonna do? It's still worth a look. It's got Plasma 5.5 in there. It's got your kernel 4.2s in there, but it's been updated OVs. It's got the system Ds and the Qt 5s, so you can go check it out at shakarakaBingBangLinux.org, or get a link in the show notes. What do you think of the first distro of the week? No, are you excited? You think it was one to give attention to, or was it a tactical error? Go.
No, I think it's good. I think that sometimes the ones that are the most interesting, and they already have a lot of the attention, right? And so I think it's kind of the ones that are out on the on the periphery that we can pull back in and say, hey, check this out.
Hey, it's still going. Their official release was in 2016, but as of right now, you can get Plasma 5.8.5 in there. They've just pushed out an update January 5th to a lot of stuff in the distribution. So they're still working on it. They're still going. They're still pushing it. It's like if somebody were to take an Arch Linux as like this base that you start from, and then totally go off on your own direction with your own repos, your own packaging, your own themes, your own approach to everything, and deliver it and maintain it and update it on your own. So it's not like it's rolling in a sense, but they control the release valve, and they do it in stages. So check it out. You can find a link in the show notes. And please do consider submitting a distribution that you think could use some attention, something that we haven't talked about a lot, or maybe even better is something that's doing something unique. I would love to see something that's not really in the mainstream. Just for we could do some mainstream ones too. I guess I'm okay with that, but I would like to see something that maybe not a lot of people have heard of. Something else maybe people don't really know, and I want to mention it right here, right now, because it's like I don't know if it was the week before, there were some weeks where the live show is way better than the actual show, because there's all kinds of stuff that comes up in the live show, or there's just more things we talk about. And whenever possible, which is almost every single week, I am posting the entire uncut live show, which is usually much longer, but much more entertaining.
What?
I know. For our patrons. And we have a new Patreon page. We've changed it. It's patreon.com/JupiterSignal now, which is to better emphasize the fact that this is for all of the productions. So not only do you get access to this show's live stream, but several other shows' live stream recordings, which is a great perk. But also you are really taking place in something that's helping tip the scale towards community funding versus sponsorship funding. And the more the scale tips that way, the more the network goes that way. And so we're really hoping that people identify that what we're doing here is trying to create something that's created and funded by the listeners and viewers, it's like a really big deal. At least I hope, because I want to do this for another 10 years, and it'd be amazing if in 10 years it was almost all entirely funded. I'd love to do it before then, but at some point I'd love to just see it almost all entirely funded by the audience. And this Patreon platform, not only is it a really standardized way to do it, which is great because more and more open source projects are going with Patreon. So once you get an account, you can help fund them and set limits so it doesn't get crazy. It's really nice to centralize it all. But it also gives us a platform to give you some perks and incentives like access to the live stream and goodies like that. Patreon.com/Jupiter Signal if you'd like to help the production throughout 2017 and tip the scale for a little bit away from sponsorships and towards community funding. And of course, there's only really one way to do that, and that's with your participation. Patreon.com/Jupiter Signal. Mr. Noah, even as a host, you are a patron, which is
I am. Well, here's the thing. First of all, I love getting like little things in the mail. I feel like
the
it's
swag.
like Christmas.
You're in the swag club even, dude. Look at you.
Well, of course I'm in the swag club. And here's the great thing. Like this is a collector's item now. This Tech Talk Today coffee mug. You can't get those anymore. And then the other thing I like is I use it as a
feed,
like to critique myself, right? I want to see the entire feed. See, like during a segment or whatever, I'll look at a specific place and be like, if I move the monitor here, did this, and then I get that because you post the feed basically 10 minutes after we get off the air,
as fast as I can. Yeah, it depends on YouTube, but yeah. The other thing I've noticed, I've noticed you use it for is sometimes because you and I we talk a lot, but we usually are working on specific things. So there's a lot of going on at JB that you don't always know about, but the patrons often find out first. And so you get the email notification, then I'll get then I'll get a telegram from you like, oh, that's awesome. Like, because you'll find out at the same time the patrons do because you are one, which is just about the same time everybody else finds out, which is another nice perk of the Patreon. Patreon.com/Jupiter Signal. All right. So just one more thing, like I was saying about the distributions. I don't know if I made it clear. You can email your picks if you go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and just want to email us in a distribution. Noah will probably be the one that catches those if you do it that way. We will probably both catch them if you submit it to the subreddit at linuxactionshow.reddit.com, or you could tweet at ChrisLAS if you want to just send it my way, and I will try to tag it and just throw it into a collection. So those are different ways to get the distributions into the show that we're going to be talking about. And I know that Noah and I are going to be looking now, but of course, if we kind of have our lanes we look down. If you guys are, distributions that maybe address different languages or different areas of the world where they might have higher visibility or just interesting ones you come across, I'd love to have a wide net to get some exposure to all of these. So that's my piece about that. Let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by...
It's brought to you by Ting. Go to last.ting.com, las.ting.com, and take $25 off your first device, or $25 in service credit. I had somebody tweet me over the weekend, hey, Chris, how do I get a deal at Ting? That's it right there, last.ting.com. You go there and start taking a little look. Maybe give them the sniff test. They have a how much would you save? Click that link right there and look around. You know what I really appreciate about Ting, besides the fact that I can disable devices, I only pay for what I use, there's no contract, my average bill is like less than $40 for 3 phones. I've got like a JB account that's got 2 MiFis on there with Ting, so I can use my datas on the road. And I went to a place over the weekend where the GSM not so awesome because it was right in the valley of a big hill. You know what I did? I popped out the CDMA MiFi little devicey, turned that sucker on for the first time in like a month, and we had excellent data service for the whole weekend. So instead of having no connectivity, which is really not that bad because we just used it for small stuff too. It was perfect because we have all this local media. I don't like I do not like to stream Netflix and stuff when I'm on the road. So I like to play back local media for all my stuff. But I'm still able to browse the web, search for stories for laughs, tag a few things. It's really nice to have CDMA or GSM to choose from. And they have a super nice dashboard to manage all of it with apps that go on your phone or your tablets, or your Linux box. They don't judge. It all works just fine in the web. They have really, really, really easy to understand contracts terms. There's no contracts. There's no termination fees. It's really simple. It's really easy and straightforward. It's the opposite of how the rest of the industry works. And what I love about it is every time one of us signs up, we influence the industry a little bit more. And they are starting to respond, but they never can quite get there like Ting. Average monthly bill is $23. That's why. both Noah and I, we get, when we see something like this, we jump on it. And Noah, crazy Noah, and crazy Chris are almost going on 3 years of Ting. We pay every month for our own service, even though they've been a sponsor for like almost that entire time. We have been customers since before they were sponsors, or right when they became sponsors, around there, because it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. We got to get them on here. And it was like right around that same time. And we have paid every single month for our bills. Ting has once given me a MiFi to play with from time to time, but and they pay for that, but I don't use it very much for my personal stuff. I only use it for testing Ting services for these very spot reads. So it's something that we have used every single month. We've put our family on, we've put our businesses on, and it's been a great choice for both of us. Not only does it give us the flexibility to fire up a device when we need to by just buying like a super cheap SIM card and then turning devices off, and it also makes for great secondary devices, like you have a tablet or an alarm system where you don't need to pay a big contract for that. Or if you're like me and you don't want to pay a lot of money for a service you don't really use much. I don't make a lot of phone calls. I really, when I do make a phone call, it's usually a very specific purpose, and it's usually at my desk. There's no reason I need to have a bunch of cell phone minutes for that. Same with text messages. I love that Ting gives me that flexibility. Last.ting.com, and while you're there, even if you're not going to sign up yet, check out their blog for cord cutting stuff. They have a great post on Fire TV and Air TV. 2 devices that were rocking it at CES. There's some really cool stuff coming for cord cutters. Not all of it's built into TVs either. Some of it's stuff you can add to your existing TV, which I'm always a big fan of. Check out their blog. Start by going to last.ting.com. This could be a big thing. I'm mostly excited about this because of who's doing the work. Because he's done great work already, and we've talked about him several times now on this show. This is a tool that's being created by Marius Grispard. I'm sorry, Marius, I always get your name wrong. He's the UBports developer who's an all-around awesome dude. He's done a presentation recently that we played on the show not too long ago. We've talked about him on Linux Unplugged on some of his work to get Ubuntu Touch on other devices, and now he's working on moving over Sailfish OS's Android compatibility layer called SF Droid to Ubuntu Touch, possibly. To get it work, he's created a hook into Surface Flinger, the Android display server, to allow window content to be drawn in Mir. It's kind of an interesting idea because it could be the bridge that brings Ubuntu Touch to people like Noah and I who want a secure OS that is more vettable, that is more community-driven, but there are certain applications that are only available for Android, like my bank, if I was going to use that, for example, or a navigation app that I use for when I'm in the RV. A lot of things actually for the RV, to set up things in the RV or for services, are only available as apps on iOS and Android. And so if I got Ubuntu Touch as my main phone, I would have to keep an iPhone or an iPad or an iPod or an Android device or of some kind, like a tablet or a phone, just so I could use those apps that these things require. And this would give somebody like me the ability to say, well, there's these 3 things. I hate it, but I have these 3 things that these different companies expect me to be able to use. If I could bring those over, sort of like Wine was for Linux back in the day, I have to have Outlook, or I have to be able to run Internet Explorer so I can use this one web page to do my job, but I could do everything else under Linux. That same kind of thing, only now with Android apps on Ubuntu Touch. Interesting to you at all, Noah?
A little bit. I still have some. The biggest hurdle I have to get over is I have to find a way to get over the mental block in my mind that there can be a third party that can permeate the mobile market, and I'm having a hard time believing that. And I think as soon as I get past that mental block, then my body will be ready to accept a Ubuntu phone. And if I can get my Android apps, that's fine. For me, I can honestly, like you were talking about, my bank, I can do that online. I don't have any devices that require an app. I wouldn't use that anyway.
What if I frame it this way?
As long as I have Telegram, a mail client, a web browser.
What if it's not for the market and the world? What if it's just for people like you at Altispeed, where you could say, Altispeed is going to run Ubuntu Touch on Nexus phones, and if you have to have these apps, you can use this to run your apps. But Altispeed uses Ubuntu Touch. Doesn't matter what the market uses.
Yeah, that's cool. And you've seen that with companies like Symbol. They have their own little
you do it. I mean, you do it now with Linux. You've done it. You did it when everybody else was deploying Windows. You're like, well, Altispeed uses Linux. I mean, you've already did that in some.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I guess I could see it, from that kind of way, being the fringe, the rebels, so to speak,
Yeah.
the resistance.
But
But yeah,
mainstream would be, and you know what? Actually, you have a prediction coming up that talks about that. I want to make a big disclosure here. Early days. This is not something that's even really usable by anybody right now. It's just something he's working on that I think is fascinating. I think it's worth talking about now because it could be a game changer. But I think Noah's overall right, and we should probably save the rest for the prediction segment, because who really knows where this is going to go anyways, and you talk about this whole market thing in there, so we'll go there. One other thing I wanted to note is there has been no news from CES, and that's not too surprising, but there's really been nothing out of Valve about Steam machines. Gabe just did an AMA, avoided all questions about Steam machines. Nobody's talking about Steam machines. No idea where Steam machines are going in 2017, but we do know that the Steam client's still getting some great updates. Improved interactions between the Steam runtime and the host distribution libraries, which is major, which should let Steam work out of the box with open source graphic drivers on modern distributions. This is a huge update. If you're using an older distribution or running into problems, you can use this runtime variable to prevent previous behaviors, and we'll have it in the Gaming on Linux article that's linked in the show notes. Idle detection, so friend status will now automatically switch to away, which was always kind of annoying if you were switching from Windows. My favorite feature, update Vulkan loader in Steam runtime to enable Xlib support, which is awesome. It's great to see Vulkan rocking in there. And a bunch of other good stuff. Steam now also supports the Xbox 360 and Xbox One and generic X input controller configuration supports. And they've also changed where game folders can be moved to. So that's, if you're curious about that, that's in there as well. So there at least is some news on the desktop's front, and it's actually really fantastic news. It's a really solid update. So I don't know about Steam machines, but the Steam client's doing well. Another fantastic update, new version of Inkscape, version 0.92, but there is a bit of a problem with the newness. What is it, Noah?
So the newer version of Inkscape can't open the vector graph, at least when it was released, couldn't open the vector graphics from older files, and so you had to manually modify these files so that they could be opened with the newer version. Now, I'm in the same boat this guy is. I have probably 20,000 vector graphics that I use for various different things. I would set up a box and I would just say, this is the Inkscape box, and I would just have an older version. That would have been my solution. But the Inkscape, and the thing is that the author of the article, he kind of rips into the open source community for a little bit, and then at the end, he goes, within just a couple of days, the developers, they were working with him, and they said, oh, tell us about it and give us some feedback. And then already have the problem fixed. It's just they didn't get the code into the next release cycle thing, so it's going to be in the version after that will actually fix the problem. But they're right on top of it, and honestly, I chalk that up to this is what they can't. When an open source community, that's what you get. They release the thing, they get real world feedback, and then they make changes accordingly. And as long as they do that in a timely manner, I don't really see a problem with it.
Yeah. So his concern was that it wasn't just that it couldn't perfectly open old SVGs. It was that it would also screw them up a little bit.
That's kind of true, but as long as you closed without saving, it didn't actually do anything.
Right.
So I ran into the same
thing. So here's what he said. He said, should I be blamed as an artist for using this tool, for using floss? Now I can invest my time of my contributions on Pepper and Carrot. If this, I guess there's another. Anyways, he goes on to talk. He really does frame this as an open source problem. I think most people listening would probably label this as an upgrading too soon problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't ever if I'm in the middle of a project, I never update my video editor. Ever. I never update my video editor or my OS right in the middle of a project. I wait till that project is done before I start the next thing, and then I test it. Even on a rolling distribution like Arch, that's how I roll. So I can't, it's really, in a sense, it's sort of a misunderstanding of how this works, because he's coming at it with the expectation of how Adobe releases software, but he wants the benefits of how free software is free and obviously not as nearly expensive because of the cost. So he wants the benefits of free software, but he wants the release characteristics of an Adobe product.
And let's be fair, even if it was an Adobe product, who in their right mind takes their production machine, upgrades everything without testing and saying, let's try the new version out, see how it works, find out where the new buttons are, where they move the menus are, make sure it opens my file. I mean, that's just something it doesn't matter if you're using proprietary open source software, you would check that stuff. And by the way, Mr. Author, sir, I have been burned by proprietary software that does kind of similar things where they upgrade a new version. I had this exact same problem with Sony Vegas where I upgraded to a version and certain project files didn't open from older versions. So
part of what led to his frustration was that he did the problem where he went to go file a bug and found 5 previous other bug reports and then he depending on how you read it, they're not taking it as seriously as they should, or this or that. Then you start doing the interpreting people's writing through the internet who come from different backgrounds and cultures. So he does. This is something that so often happens in these rants about open source. Is you get burned, and then you go down the path of trying to engage the community to solve the problem for you, and either you're coming in with a bunch of bad momentum, or they have a process that you're not following, and it never goes well. Like it just these bugs are old, they haven't been fixed. Like whatever it is about the open source community, when somebody who is unfamiliar with the way it works tries to solve their problem and they go the route of going down the bug reports rabbit hole, they always come out of that more pissed off than they started, because it's not the right place for the kind of solution or resolution they're looking for, but it seems to be where people end up. And that was, I think, ultimately what pushed him over the edge in his experience. And maybe there's something we can do there as a community. Maybe that's why there is a place for things like Stack Exchange. And I know we have things like IRC and forums, but obviously people end up at the bug trackers all the time. It just seems to be a constant issue.
You know what? I'll just add. You know what the newest thing is? Slack. 3 different projects, including OpenEMR, have Slack channels, and they advertise those, and you can jump in there and ask questions and say, hey, this is a problem I'm having right now, and you get like immediate response. And the thing is, as a community, as an open source in general, one of the problems we have is like branding and image perception. I think we have that problem a lot. And the thing is, if you just kind of reframe this in your mind from join an IRC channel or Slack message to go to the support website and click on the live chat and a support representative will help you. If you just kind of rephrase that a little bit, and then you say you have access to instant support, and oh, by the way, the 24/7 available chat support is available to you for free.
Does it strike you as odd, though, that all of these open source projects and groups are all going to Slack? Like, I know we've had this conversation a lot, but there's Mattermost, there's Rocket Chat, there's other solutions out there. But I think the real thing about Slack is that it's easy it's easy for the end user to get going, and it's push a button for the group to get going, whoever is setting it up.
I tell you what, if Mattermost, for what most places are doing, can do everything that Slack can do. The problem that Mattermost doesn't have is you need somebody like Adram to set up a system where I can just go to mattermost.org or whatever and click on create a group, and then they will host it. And if I want to, I can take it and host it myself. But the self-hosting of Slack, I think, is the single biggest factor what makes everyone use it. Because most of those people that I'm in, they're not using any tie-ins, which is the big advantage that Slack has is all these, but that's not what they're doing. It's just a chat.
And now it's reached that point where it's got such a large user base now that a lot of people already have Slack accounts. Like there's people that we start working with, they're already in Slack.
Wow. That doesn't really matter, because every time you join a new team, you got to create a new account. So
there is a way to I don't know Slack very well, but there is a way to tie it all together, and you have one app you go into, and all the Slacks that you're a member of are there. I don't know.
I have that, but you have you create a separate login for each site. So it still gives me concern, but I guess as long as Mattermost and Rocket Chat and those things stick around, then people could break off if they had to. Going back to the main topic, though, I think the bigger story is it's end user doesn't really know how to use the tool. They think they know how to use the tool, but they don't understand the complete life cycle of the tool that they're using. In this case, it was Inkscape. In this case, and end user might not totally understand all the technical things going on behind the scenes about changes that may or may not be happening for other reasons. End user then goes to get resolution, ends up at Bug Tracker, gets even more pissed off by the response or the lack of response and the duplication of bugs or the tone for whatever reason. There's lots. And then goes and takes to social media and declares that open source is a broken model. Right.
This seems to be that overall seems to be the common theme. You could take Inkscape out and put GIMP in there or Firefox in there or any open source application and you have the same results, I think. You agree? There's something
100%.
There's something there that maybe as a community we could look at. Somebody who's in a position to organize better, or if you have a project that has, users like that, like maybe you're in the Inkscape project, maybe there's something there to look at, considering that things like Inkscape and GIMP appeal to a user base that doesn't really probably have the technical background necessary for the full lifecycle management of the application. Speaking of lifecycle management, we talked a lot last week about OpenEMR, and they're on life support right now. Help is needed. They need urgent funding, which I thought we probably should have mentioned because they need this to get Stage 2 certification, which was an issue we talked about in the show. And since we did seem to get a lot of positive responses, I thought if you thought that whole OpenEMR solution that's helping a lot of clinics use open source technology and Linux on the back end. And if you're curious about the project itself or want to help contribute, we have a link in the show notes.
And I was talking to Brady. They are very, very close to releasing a version, the next version, version 5, which is going to have a completely redesigned UI. I think we mentioned that last week. And so any of the funding that they can get would really help to kind of polish off so it's more approachable to people that that are comparing it to proprietary big name solutions.
Yeah, it looks like there is there's sort of a pressing need to get that Stage 2 certification. And if we don't have this as a community, then we don't really have a player in this space.
The problem is without if they don't keep up with those certifications, they reach a point where the federal government won't allow practices who use that software to get their full reimbursement. So they dock them 10%, 20%, 30%. So they lose money, and that's not going to work. That's a red line in the sand, right? So it's very important that they get it. But I think they have a little bit of time before level 2 is required.
Here's the thing, because it feels like if we don't have even just a decent offering in this section, then essentially we're just going to give all this territory away to huge commercial conglomerate solutions that are so far away from open source, it's not even perceivable for them, and in some cases require very sophisticated Windows servers and SQL setups. Because I have implemented those I have never actually gotten to implement an EMR that runs on Linux. All of the ones in my professional career that I was forced to set up all ran on Windows and SQL, and that has been my predominant experience across different areas, especially when you get into specialties like gynecology and cancer treatment. I saw all Windows. And so for me personally, I can't even imagine if this could. I don't know if the OpenEMR was around back then, because this is 7-8 years ago, so I'm not sure. But it was a very expensive place to be in. Yeah, go ahead.
You made that comment last week, and somebody emailed me or telegrammed me a link. There is actually a company that has designed that. They took the OpenEMR base and designed an OBGYN frameworks around it, and so basically it has all the forms that you need for
wow, that's awesome.
Exams. Yeah, and then they sell it as a OBGYN EMR specifically, and it's based on OpenEMR. So I think that was cool.
That's also another really cool thing OpenEMR could be used for, is to help get specific for different industries. So that's a pretty cool project. If you feel like contributing, we have a link in the show notes. I think they'll take about just any dollar amount. So they're just trying to get there to get that certification. If there was a news story you didn't see covered this week, you can submit it to linuxactionshow.reddit.com, and we just might include it in next week's episode. But that's all the news for this week. It's now that time of the show where we have to own up to the predictions we made in 2016. I did okay. I think maybe Noah might have done better, but we have the top 14 predictions we made in 2016, and we'll see how we did. But first, I want to thank Linux Academy for making this segment right here, to making it possible. You go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged, support the show, and sign up for a free 7-day trial. They have so many great tools. They have step-by-step video courses. They have instructor mentoring available. They have entire tool sets they have built so you can learn to think critically about technology, so you can really get hands-on experience. They have community stacks of cards that have been forked to help you learn to prepare for tests. They have specific work tracks. They have availability planners for when you're busy. They're constantly adding new content. It really is an awesome system, and you can get started by going to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. You get the 7-day free trial and really get to check it out for yourself. Take a look at the study tools, the iOS and Android apps. See if maybe you're going for a cert, see what they got for that. I think you'll be pretty impressed. Or if you want to learn about some high-level stuff or deep down nitty-gritty Linux things, they got all of it, including Amazon Web Services, Azure, OpenStack. And I also would recommend, if you're kind of shopping around and checking out Linux Academy, check out their Twitter feed to get a sense of some of the things they're working on, like the new content. They just partnered up with Chef, really high-quality, in-depth chef training, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Can you hear that jet that's flying over right now? Can you hear that on your end in Grand Forks, North Dakota?
Again, that timing is fantastic. They know exactly when you're about to start.
I love it.
When you're on.
It's good.
Maybe it's because you tweeted.
Maybe. Yeah, might be. So we're gonna pull some clips. We're gonna pull some clips from episode 398 of Your Here Linux Action Show. And if you want all of them in their contextual goodness, you can go grab that whole episode, Consulting the Oracle for 2016. But you good? I just
I thought we were going to start the clips. I didn't realize you're going back to the camera shot.
Yeah, you're good over there. Okay, good. So, but I pulled out the highlights where, well, let's start with one that I think I really bombed on. I think this might be my worst of the whole batch. Right off the top, I thought SyncThing was going to get integrated into everything. To my ball, let's talk about our crystal balls. So my first prediction for 2016, and I'm intentionally going a little vague on this one. I have, if the audience wants the wish list episode, I have specifics in my wish list. I mean, ones I would really love to see. But my first prediction for 2016 is by the end of the year, some major open source project where it makes sense will have integrated SyncThing in a way that is core to that project. All right, so I think that's probably fair to say. I don't know what happened in 2016 to Linux syncing. Like, SyncThing basically just kept doing the same thing. Libre Vaults just sort of puttered along. Nothing's really gone anywhere. Nextcloud's had the most changes in this area, but their core sync technology is still kind of the same thing. So I think this one's a bomb, Noah. I think my first one's a bomb.
I'm inclined to agree. However, I think, wasn't it this year that you were talking about that you were it was either a wish or a prediction that you thought that syncing was going to take off again this year?
I don't know what I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Must have been a wish.
No, it was a wish. Yeah, it was. All right. So Noah, this one, you pulled this kind of stuff on me. I feel like Noah of 2017 might not, but Noah of 2016, you kind of combined two predictions into one. Okay. And so the first one I'm going to give you, I'm going to say you probably are right, even though I kind of quibble on the details. But the second part, I'm going to say you didn't get right. So you get like 50% on this prediction.
Okay.
My first prediction is 2016 is going to be the Internet of Things, the year of the Internet of Things. I think that all devices are going to transition to IPv6. I think that we've reached the end of IPv4, and I'm watching ISPs slowly make that jump to IPv6. And once that happens, the ability to bypass or to not have NAT, to not have the need for NAT, and have every single device that is attached to the internet have its own individual address is going to make the Internet of Things explode like you could not even believe. Everyone thinks we have devices that are connected now. I think that's going to be totally different in 2016.
So you double down on IPv6, and we talk about that a little bit in the show. I'd say you're probably right about the Internet of Things exploding. I kind of quibble a little bit about the details because looking at the Google trends, it really kind of looks like they started taking off in 2015. But I'll say you're right. 2016 was a great year for IoT. But IPv6, it's basically had as much progress as SyncThing has. Like, not a lot's been going on.
I don't know if I quite agree with that. On the
consumer side, I mean,
infrastructure level, I think, yeah, right. Consumer side, absolutely nothing has really changed. Infrastructure side, things have gotten a lot bigger. Like, I have the IPv6 now to my ISP, which is I did not have that last year. So that has changed in 2016. But overall, I agree. I was thinking that every Internet of Thing device you bought, you would get an IPv6 address for it. That's clearly not the case.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of this next one. So I will defer to your judgment. I don't have a strong feel.
My balls here, and I will tell you that I think. I'm sorry, I won't do it anymore.
Ball, singular.
Ball.
Phrasing, Chris, phrasing.
You know, I want to pick on Linux hipsters for a second with my next pick here, Noah. I even have a prop to help me do it. So I think in 2016, you're going to see Linux hipsters start talking about using the Raspberry Pi and those types of devices, like maybe a little faster, for their day-to-day work. Much how Apple bloggers talk about how they only use the iPad or the iPad Pro to do all their day-to-day work. They can do everything on the iPad, right? Well, we're going to be talking about doing everything on ARM devices and Raspberry Pi. And I want to underscore the ARM part because I think that has a big part of it. And I present you right here, friends, the Canoe.
All right, Noah, what's your judgment? Have ARM devices taken off amongst the Linux hipsters?
No, not at all. I mean, they're certainly good for tinkering, but I think we're nowhere near a point where people are bragging about I'm doing all this stuff on my Raspberry Pi or on my ARM device. I don't think so.
Fair enough.
And also, did we ever review the Canoe? I don't remember that.
I think I did in LUP. I think I did it in Unplugged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. So this one, I wish you were right. Let's see.
SSL and web encryption will become the de facto standard, and all devices that will be issuing CA certs. So if you buy a router in a store, halfway through 2016, I don't think it's going to happen right away, but by the end of 2016, I think all the routers that you buy in stores are going to have certificate authority certificates on them. I think that things like OwnCloud, to roll your own services, any of that stuff, HTTP is just not going to be a thing. It's all.
No.
I mean, SSL had a good year in 2016, but I think it's
and to be fair, Linksys, D-Link, TP-Link, all of those are shipping with SSL, but their HTTP is still very much a thing.
Yeah. Now we might argue about my next prediction a little bit. I want to frame this a little bit. So this was right after Apple had announced Swift, and then they had just open sourced it like a week or two before we recorded this episode, and it was sort of getting early adoption, but it wasn't really defined much as a project yet.
Something like that. And a lot of those roll your own services, I think those are going to incorporate SSL, and I think that's how.
Oh, hold on. Let's see. There is a Swift. Here we go. I was editing under AvidMux, so sometimes the B marker, A marker are slightly off. But here we go. Here's my Swift.
Becomes uncomfortably popular, especially on Linux. I'm not talking like on the desktop. I'm talking on the server. I present Exhibit A, perfect.org, already launched before Swift even went open source. It builds itself. We've talked about this in Coda Radio, which I'm sure you've heard, Noah, because I'm sure you're listening to Coda Radio. It builds itself as one language to rule them all. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could develop every aspect of your app's front and back end, all using Swift? We think so. That's the vision behind Perfect. Perfect is the first enterprise-grade web server and web toolkit for the Swift programming language. If you're ready to develop in Swift and you need a back-end server software, Perfect eliminates the need to choose and learn a back-end language by allowing you to use Swift for all of your coding. And they're working on Linux versions. And of course, Apple has released Linux Code.
So I want to kind of preface this and say I think this has gone better than I sort of expected. There's a couple of different. I think Vue is the one. I can't remember.
Wait. What? You think this has gone better than you expected?
Yeah. Swift is blown up. Yeah, it's huge. Swift has gone huge. The community is ginormous, and there's I think 3. So perfect.org is one of them. There's these frameworks that make using Swift on the server possible. I think Vue or I can't remember exactly, but Perfect has grown a ton since we covered it in that episode. It's gotten actually commercial backing now. It's a web server and toolkit for developers using the Swift programming language to build applications and other REST services. And I just heard an interview with the guy who created Swift, who just recently left Apple. We talked about that in Coda Radio last week. And he says by version 5, it's at version 3 right now. By version 5, they plan to have everything in place to make it a fully capable, fully featured server-side language. Like it's part of their roadmap right now. So I don't know if it's uncomfortable. I think it's the silent sleeper that's creeping in on us. Oh, and look, they have a link for Slack right there. Isn't that interesting? Right there at the top. But Mike, and I'm forgetting the name. I wish I could give it a plug for him. But Mike's company, Buccaneer, decided to invest in one of the server-side Perfect frameworks because it's getting some attention. All right, this one I thought, I don't know. I think this one, so I don't know if mine's a miss or a hit, Mine's it was like more of a soft landing. So I'm going to say it's a miss. I'm going to be critical, and I'm going to say my Swift prediction was a miss. So just for, even though it's done really well and it's gone. I expected it to go like super high up vertically, and it just went horizontally, and it's like building out horizontally. But now that I've learned that Apple themselves have it in their roadmap for version 5-ish, that's not official, but that's what he said in the interview. I can see why it didn't happen as fast as I thought it would. But that's cool. It's cool. It's going that direction, and I actually, get ready for this, don't think it's all that bad of a thing. I mean, I know it's an Apple product, but Swift actually seems to be reasonable. I don't know if it's more compelling than, say, Rust or using Go or something like that on the server, but it seems to be reasonable. So you had a prediction about AI in 2016, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Apple has released Linux code. Well,
Okay, all right.
Here we go.
My next prediction is that Linux or open source technology is going to become the playground and essentially ground zero for Mycroft and artificial intelligence. I
Linux is going to be ground zero for artificial intelligence in Mycroft.
think that as Mycroft gains traction next year, I think that is going to be Linux is, just because that is where all of this stuff has started, is going just like the Raspberry Pi. Even though Windows has tried to put their stuff on the Pi, nobody actually uses Windows on it. Very few people actually use Windows.
I don't think that took off. I don't think that's. I mean, I think AI is mostly server side, which may be Linux, but Mycroft side of that.
And really what I was getting with that prediction was that more people were going to start coming up and inventing things with AI, and that would all happen under Linux. And that definitely has not happened. In fact, you could argue it's gone the opposite direction, and everything that's happening with AI is now happening in the cloudosphere. We're not building things on a Raspberry Pi or any sort of Linux. We're just integrating different things in by clicking in Amazon and their stupid things. So
I've noticed something that I'll try to remember to share at the end. You and I have a pattern of what tools we're using to make a prediction when we're right or wrong. I can look back at these. I can tell our pattern. Like this one. This is number 7 for 2016. Apple will drop cups. I'll tell you why I missed this one.
We'll adopt the commercial stuff, and that's going to generate the hype. But the actual I'll use cups. I think 2016 Apple either cuts cups loose somehow, or what I think is more likely to happen is, in the next version or the version after of OS X, Apple is going to replace cups with their own custom printing system. They've been doing this with Samba and local DNS lookup and a lot of different utilities they've been replacing with their own. Their init system was one of their first.
So, I thought this was going to happen because Apple was losing interest in the desktop and being compatible and just was going to build their own thing just to do the job. But that's ridiculous, because if you think about it, they're losing interest in the desktop. They don't want to spend any time or energy developing new things, so they're just going to keep what they have and just keep kicking the can down the road. So because of their neglect of the Mac, they're not motivated to replace cups. I mean, it's obvious now at this point in time, right? But back then, we didn't know how badly they were going to punt on the Mac for the year. It was at the beginning of 2016. So yeah, that was. See, I can see my pattern though. I can see my pattern.
though.
All right, so Noah has a prediction. Our number 8 prediction.
My next prediction is that optical discs are going to be phased out by the end of 2016. We're going to be done with Blu-rays, and in replacement of Blu-rays, we are going to have something like digital copy. And if you are a full-time Linux user like I am, then you've dealt with this, where you go to the store and pay $20 or $30 for a movie, and you bring it home, and you can't watch your own freaking movie that you paid for in the store because the stupid little digital copy thing doesn't work, and I can't bother to rip my software doesn't break the encryption or whatever to rip the movie that I paid money for in the store.
Yeah. I guess those. I thought I'd let you rant more. So what do you think? I don't think optical media is dead.
No, not even close. And really what I was getting at there was that we weren't going to be able to go into a store and buy a Blu-ray, and you can definitely still go into a store and buy a Blu-ray. If I would have thought about that, I almost would make that prediction for 2017 at this point. We are so, let me back that up for a little bit. There are so many people that I know that have not purchased a Blu-ray in I don't know how long. They buy their movies in one of 3 places, either Vudu on the little box thingy. A lot of people are buying content off of the Google Play Store and off of Amazon and off of iTunes. And then a lot of people just go, I don't want to own a movie. I don't care if I own it, or I'll just watch whatever's available on Netflix. There are so
agree.
few people that are buying computers.
I don't even have a Blu-ray player hooked up anywhere.
I don't either. I haven't had for a long time.
Yeah. Now that's not to say I don't. I actually still buy Blu-rays occasionally. I probably buy about 5 to a dozen a year.
Yeah,
not a high. To make MKV into a file that I put on a server and then I watch. Yeah. Now, okay. I feel like all of my other predictions can be written off because this next prediction, I feel like I nailed so hard, it totally excuses everything else so far.
I think that we should all make those businesses fail.
All right.
They have said that.
So my next prediction is this will be the year. It's just going to be like an avalanche. It's just going to happen, and it's just going to become the norm by the end of 2016. It's just going to be the accepted wisdom, and that is ButterFS is going to be talked about as in it's good for some use cases. And let me give you that use case. It'll be et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It'll be a pretty specific use case, and that's a great scenario for ButterFS, where ButterFS won't be talked about, and this is going to be the big deal, and this is going to be the thing that's really going to take off, is data storage. People aren't going to be talking about big data storage with ButterFS. We're going to be talking about ZFS on Linux. ZFS is going to go so big on Linux in 2016. Driven in a large part by Ubuntu, even though there's lots of ways to do it now, and there has been for a while. But when you actually get a bullet point on an Ubuntu box, the theoretical Ubuntu box that ships, that doesn't actually ship, that bullet point that reads ZFS support, that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the thing that just tips the scales, because then you're going to be able to deploy a droplet out of the box ZFS support, right? Things like that. So I predict.
Wow.
I think I pretty much nailed that one because it was
hats off.
Yeah.
That is,
I like that one.
That is almost as if you were sitting in at the end of 2016 and went back and did a prediction in the episode.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody
When I follow trends and make predictions from the news we were following, then I make good predictions. And when I just take crazy claims about cups, I go off the rails. I think this next one, you'll have to be the ultimate judge because you're the one implementing a lot of these for businesses. But I feel like 2016 was the year that if you're releasing an app for the enterprise, you're just by default releasing it as a web app. That was your prediction.
Execute the buttons that are on the web page, but basically it is a web page too. I think that trying to write a application for Windows or for Mac or for Linux, at least in a broad sense,
like for enterprise
applications, large deployments, are going to be almost next to nothing in 2016.
Why waste the effort? So your point was like native apps, they're done. Enterprise apps are going to be all web based, and I feel like that did bear out.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there are 2 major hotel chains that in 2016, they went from having local software up to just it's a web page you visit and you check everyone in and do everything through the web page. And even a hotel chain, Choice Hotels, that was already using a web-based software, now their backup solution runs in the web, and just everything happens inside of a web browser.
Wow. Yeah. Now this next one, this is number 11, and I did not nail this one, and I could tell you why. I could tell you why afterwards.
BSD is totally going to go Systemd. They won't call it that. Nobody call it that, and they're going to mock Systemd all the way there. But I've been watching this come down the pipe for a while. They're starting with the Mac launcher, and then they're going to customize. That's one of their ideas. In fact, it's discussions that they've been having for a while over on the BSD Now show. In fact, I was going to grab the episode. Oh, yeah, BSD Now episode 118. BSD is go for launch. This is the summary of the episode. We know init systems have been all the rage recently, from Systemd to OpenRC, LaunchD, and even Nosh. A lot of work is being done in this arena. Today, we're interviewing Mark Haley to discuss his efforts on RelaunchD and how it differs from the rest. So essentially, FreeBSD, after years of mocking Systemd, is going to be implementing its own version of Systemd, and they'll begin that work in 2016. That's my prediction, and because of that, the Systemd haters are going to start to normalize out and fade into the background.
I got that last part kind of right. The Systemd haters have sort of faded into the background. Here's what happened: is I got two things wrong. First thing I got wrong was BSD don't move that fast. They're still having those same exact conversations they were having when I made that prediction. Now, there has been some movement, however. I looked into this. Relaunch D got turned into Job D, so they've sort of redefined what it does, and it is being developed as a possible new init job system for BSD, but not like System D completely. And TrueOS, which is the rename of PCBSD, which has really gone an interesting direction over the last year. TrueOS has, formerly known as PCBSD, has really evolved. It's now a rolling BSD with a brand new init system. Oh! But it's actually using OpenRC. Ironically, OpenRC is init based. So I predicted that BSD would go with System D, and in actuality, the most relevant BSD for the desktop went with init. So just as Linux got done with init, BSD switched over to init. So I would suspect in about 15 years, BSD will get System D. All right, number 12. I think you nailed this one, Noah. I think you probably were right. It was sort of a prediction about the mobile OS market, not like Samsung and HTC and Motorola, but Android, Ubuntu, iOS, that kind of thing.
My System D / B.
Listen, I'm sure I will hear about it all day long from Alan come Linux.
Oh, I have one. I think I have one.
Official OS, all of those mobile operating systems, if they have the groundwork started, they're either going to really plunge ahead and continue, or they're going to pull and be done with it. And by the end of 2016, anyone that's left standing, those are going to be what we have for mobile platforms. I don't think after 2016 anyone is going to say, well, mobile is the way of the future, and we should go create a mobile operating system and try to get it to run on phones. I don't think that's going to happen. I think 2016. I think if you've already started down that road, they might continue it. But at the end of 2016, whoever is left standing, that's what we have left. They'll either succeed or they'll be done.
I think that's probably legitimately what happened. I don't think Samsung's really trying to launch their own OS anymore. Nokia's not trying to do that thing. It's sort of like, okay, it's Android. Ubuntu Touch is still out there, but it's sort of on pause right now. Lineage is rebooting. They've announced their release plans. So like those projects, like you said, that are around are still around, but it's pretty much solidified, I would say. I got this. I think you got that one right. I'm going to give it to you. And I think I probably got this prediction about Vulkan right.
Left standing, that's what we have left.
I predict 3 new phone devices. Yeah. My last prediction.
Sorry, the editing is a little. I'm editing on the command line, so getting me.
This is my last one. Then I have some from the patrons. Vulkan. It's going to be a great year for Vulkan. No, not the planet Spock's from. It's that graphics API we've been talking about. I think Vulkan will be supported on nearly all the platforms by the end of 2016, Linux being one of them, helped by Valve, iOS being the biggest one not supported. I even think that includes Android. This will start to open up the market to allow more options for Linux gaming by the last quarter of 2016. They're going to be right into Vulkan. And the only thing that's still kind of sticky there is the audio stuff, because there's not a great solution there. But for video, it's going to be a great year for Vulkan getting picked up. Now, of course, I'm sure it's going to take some time to work out all the kinks, but you're going to see Vulkan adoption on nearly all platforms, I think, by the end of 2016.
I think I got that. I think that's right. And, Vulkan is here today in 2017, and just the beginning of it, it's looking pretty solid. Mm-hmm. And our last prediction, number 14, let's see how Noah did on this one.
All right. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I'm sure I would.
Okay.
I would.
Ready? Go. Lay it on me.
On the other side. Okay. All right. RHEL will continue down its path of amazingness, righteousness, and I'm going to continue to preach how much I love Red Hat. But by the end of 2016, Chris is going to format all of his Arch boxes and put Fedora on them, and all of his servers on the back end and all the back end infrastructure of Jupiter Broadcasting is going to run CentOS.
What? Then your description is not accurate.
Now, hold on before you play the boo thing. I came really close.
You did come closer than I thought you would. At the time you made that prediction, I thought you were so crazy. However, I think technically I formatted a couple of those Arch boxes in 2017. Just to be clear about that.
Right. But
and I didn't go to Fedora. I didn't go to Fedora.
Right, but almost. Wasn't the last when we reviewed 25, wasn't that the closest you've ever been to switching to Fedora?
Yeah, but here's what happened before. Here's what happened. I should say after you made that prediction is they released Fedora 24, and that just sort of like
Fedora 24 is going to be bomb.
Yeah,
I
that
knew
bombed
that.
bad, and it sort of set back my confidence about using Fedora. Now 25 has sort of made up for those losses, but the problem was that when 24 landed, it was the perfect time for me to switch to Fedora, and now Solus is at a place where I'm ready to try it. Elementary, all these, just mostly Solus and Anagros are really at a point now where I'm ready to use them as my main distros. And when Fedora 24 landed, that wasn't the case. So I think if Fedora 24 had gone right, you may have almost completely nailed that. Although no way in hell I'm loading CentOS on any of the servers ever.
You just didn't wait long enough to install 24. And here's the thing.
Yeah, right. What, 6 months?
I'm 7 or 8. I'm still waiting for. I'm still waiting. And you mark my words. At some point, you're gonna have a bunch of CentOS servers running. I have faith. I know it. It's coming.
I don't. Okay. All right. Soon as CentOS goes rolling and has the CentOS user repository, and no, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. All right. So it was a pretty mixed bag. I'll tell you what. Here's the trends that I noticed. Noah, when you are projecting like the worst thing that you don't want to ever happen, like the Internet of Things with no firewall protection or the death of physical media, you get really close. You sometimes nail it. And me, when I'm watching like the news trends and stuff like that, I get close. But when I go off into the weeds for BSD or Apple, where I don't follow those super closely, I'm just shooting in the dark and having fun, and I don't get close at all. Like giving up cups never happened. Of course, it didn't happen. BSD getting systemd is a erroneously hilarious prediction. They did switch to OpenRC. There was talk about relaunch D. It's just that they're still talking about it. They don't like in Linux. Like when we say, "All right, we're gonna implement something," we just start implementing it. We just start building and creating it. But in BSD, you got to have a good 5-year discussion on that, and that's just different approaches. But it works for them. And now they got an empty in TrueOS. So.
Maybe I should go. Maybe I should switch to BSD.
Yeah, TrueOS legitimately looks really nice.
5 to 15 year LTS.
We have threatened to review PCBSD on the show before. We've done it once before, and usually everybody's like, "Yeah, you should do it. You should do it." And then you and I, at the 11th hour, like, it's not Linux. Let's just focus on Linux. Yeah. But TrueOS, I think, is actually super compelling.
Here's the problem: the problem is like when we reviewed Windows 10, like. You're not going to get anything out of that review that you actually want to hear. Like, we're just not the people to do that. That's somebody else's gig.
I don't know. Sometimes there's something to having like the person that uses brand A try brand X for a while, and then I don't know. There's something to that. But yeah, you're probably right. So there you go. Those are our predictions. If you want to see a little bit more, including the ones that the community did, and more context of those, we'll have that episode linked in the show notes. Not an awesome batting average, but I really like the ones we did get right. The ones we got right, only one I wish would have been more right was SSL everywhere. But we did get really close with, there's projects out there now.
Progress.
Yeah. So there's a handful. There's a handful. All right, that's our look back at what we thought was going to happen and how it actually went down. You'll have to stay tuned for next year to see how we did at the beginning of this year. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we go, we've got some more questions for you and some questions for us. And I want to thank System76 for making this segment possible. Go to system76.com and find yourself a rig built for Linux, born to run Ubuntu, supported by a company that's involved in the open source community, shipping computers assembled right here in the US of A. Check them out at system76.com. Go over there and grab yourself the Oryx Pro like Noah's dad did. Talk about a workstation killer, a laptop with a GTX 10 series GPU in it. Man, what a machine. Anything you want. Desktops, laptops, they got different form factors for you, including the itsy bitsy little Meerkat all the way up to massive machines. Look how nicely refined that is. Boom. Look at that lineup, nice and tight. The Silverback workstation is such a beast. And that Leopard's like that perfect sweet spot. And then the Wild Dog, you get such great performance right off the bat, and then super nice expandability too. System76.com, laptops, desktops, they got them all. And they've also got the Superfan contest going on too. You can find out more about on their website. Just go over there, grab a machine, and when you're checking out, tell them Noah switched you to Linux, even if you already run Linux. We're just trolling Emma, really. I mean, that's what it's all come down to after all these years. System76.com, and tell them that Noah switched you to Linux. So I wanted to pick up on this thread about bulletproofing your Linux install, because I would like to have a Linux workstation that I could turn on, and I would like to create like a 4 to 5 year window of time where there's zero issues. That's what I think I'm going for, 4 to 5 years of no problems. Other than like applications that I've installed or updated that break at the time I do it. But like I want a system at the core of it. I sit down and it always works for me. And I had a couple of ideas on what I could do to sort of get the ball rolling. Do you want me to start with that, or do you want to start with yours?
Sure. No,
okay.
You go ahead and start.
And I want to get really want to get the audience's input. That's why we're talking about this in the feedback section. So if you've been thinking about, or if you've created like a bulletproof Linux install, tell us your setup at the contact page, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, and send it in. Because I think if we get enough submissions, I want to try this throughout the week, some of people's suggestions and some of my ideas, and come back next week and report on if maybe we have a bulletproof Linux installation. And if we do, I'm going to commit to continuing to update it like down and down and down the road to really see if it works. But my ideas right now, and this is not what I'm doing, this is just kind of what I'm thinking, is a base install of Solus, because it's now rolling. It has the core desktop applications I need with a minimal GTK desktop. And then Docker almost all of the things. And not Docker because it's cool, not Docker because it's like this hip new stuff. But honestly, I want something that has a very high application availability, and Docker is it. It's got everything. It's published up in the Docker Hub. And I want something isolated so I don't have individual system updates breaking things. And I want something portable too if I do have to move and get up and work again. So I think I'm going to do right now my plan is a Solus base with a lot of things containerized that I can, especially things that are like web apps or command line applications. And then a backup regime to supplement that, and I haven't really filled that out yet. I'm still considering some sort of like scheduled Clonezilla, something like that. I have not figured that out, but I feel like once I have a base stable OS, containerized applications, and then the third part of it, I want to sort of seal it all up and sort of enshrine it with a backup where if something does happen, I go to my backup and I have minimal effort to get back up and running. So this predictions episode that we just played back was supposed to happen last week, and I couldn't do it because my machine died, and I specifically wanted to edit it under Linux for the show. And so I could have brought it into the Final Cut OS and edited it under Final Cut, but I opted to instead. We came up with at the last minute, Noah and I sort of like, well, this isn't really working out. What do you want to do? And we did the OpenEMR episode, which I think turned out great. So we wouldn't have even had that episode if my Archbox hadn't died. But then when I finally got things back up and running, I kind of had to half-ass it because I don't have my full desktop. And you could see some of the clips, they weren't timed right, they weren't cut right. It shows, like, there is an impact in the quality to the show when my shit breaks. And it drives me crazy because we had to postpone an episode, and then we finally had the episode this week. Most of the clips, even though I specifically told it when to come in and out, because of the way the H.264 codec works, these tools, because they don't re-render the clips, they started a few seconds earlier in the clip, and there's just no way around it with the tool set I'm using, with the setup that I have right now, and I don't want my workstation to break on me. I'm perfectly happy. I've got lots of machines I experiment with that I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff on all the time, and I don't have that expectation of those systems. But this one I wanted to bulletproof. So that's sort of my general idea. What are you kind of kicking around right now?
Well, so I was thinking about it. I thought if a client came to me and asked me that question, how would I respond? And basically what I came up with, the 3 M's to a perfectly stable bulletproof Linux system. All right. The first M, minimalist. The less overall changes you make to the system, the better you're going to be off. Think Walmart or think lowest common denominator, right? If I have a Linux distro that just has a basic X11 environment with just Chrome running, that's going to be a remarkably stable system. Of course, there are going to be some productivity implications of just having one tool, but keep it as minimalist as possible.
Keep it simple, like the Arch philosophy, you might say. Yeah. Okay.
The second M, mainstream. The further from mainstream you go, the worse of a time you're going to have. The more you're going to have to fight uphill. Take, for example, Ubuntu. Everyone develops for Ubuntu, and so Ubuntu has a bunch of software that is highly refined to work right. Lightworks, for example, which I've had trouble under literally every other distro, works flawlessly in Ubuntu 16.04 LTS because that's the distro that they're targeting for. And the last M is minimize updates. That's right. take the updates that enhance security, take the things that you absolutely have to keep the system running. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't live on the bleeding edge. And that way you'll have a perfectly bulletproof, stable system.
I don't know if I could do half of that stuff. I don't want to run Ubuntu. I could.
The first two you could do. Really? I feel like the first two you could do.
What?
No, Arch is mainstream, I would say.
Yeah.
More or less.
Here's the problem. Noah is, I'm above all that now. I'm above distros. I use the same projects and code everywhere I go, Noah. I don't care who puts it together. I'm above all that now, Noah. I'm beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm next level now, Noah. So I just, if I wanted to be bored by my computer, I could be. So I'm trying to walk a line.
But you have to admit, my 3Ms would make a Linux box that would basically work for 5 years, no problem, right? If you followed my 3Ms, I think you'd get 5. I don't think there's much question. Come on, we all know the answer. I'm just waiting for you to admit it.
I don't want to accept a reality where in order for my computer to run well, I can never, ever have new stuff on it. I don't have to have a reality where I have new stuff every day, but that seems like a compromise too far.
5 years.
That seems like a compromise a Mac user wouldn't have to make, for example.
Well, it's an inverse. I think it's an inverse scale, right? The more bleeding edge you get, I think the more you're going to sacrifice stability, and I think the more you just stick with the same old tools that work now.
I know we say that all the time, but honestly, out of all of the Arch systems I've been running now for years, that's the only major blow up I've had in all of this time.
That's true.
So if you average it out, my Arch systems have been significantly more stable than any other desktop I've gone with.
Have you ever run a stock LTS Ubuntu for 5 years and not upgraded and not tweaked it and not?
No, I've definitely run Ubuntu releases that I've upgraded. It just kept for many years I've upgraded, and now Fedora releases that I've been doing that with. I guess I'm trying to walk a line where I don't find the computer to be a boring thing that I'm afraid to touch and update. So I find so here's where Solus appeals, because I know you say it's not mainstream, but where Solus appeals is if the base OS has extremely careful and meticulous packaging, that is probably going to pretty much insulate me from most package conflict issues or upgrade issues from the base things. And that's where I'm getting Telegram, Chrome, pretty much it, right? Maybe boxes,
right.
The desktop environment itself. Maybe things like N1, Thunderbird, those things I'm pulling from the Solus repos. Everything else is in a container in this scenario, I think. Sort of like that runs Linux we started with.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how this is going to manifest itself. So I guess we'll just kind of see it play out, and then I can look back and be like, that's what I was talking about. But I feel like when you start to take on a paradigm that not many other people are doing, or at least not the majority of people are doing, I feel like you set yourself up to run into problems that.
But that sounds like a reason not to use Linux. That's Linux.
No, I don't think so. I think there's enough people using Linux that'll get done.
I guess it depends on proportion, because if you go by your argument, I should technically run Windows.
No. No, because here's
okay. All right. Okay. Fine.
No, here's what.
All right.
The only real advantage Windows has over Linux is software availability, and that is first and foremost.
And amount of users. I mean, if you're arguing user base size and the availability of tech,
user base is only really useful for software availability, right? Yes. Oh, yes. If you wanted troubleshooting, if you wanted to find answers to Windows, yes, there are going to be more answers.
Docker is the platform where I'm getting the software from in this snario. Docker is.
I'm simply saying
Docker is
the paradigm of having
league.
containerized applications with the separate base OS is not very widespread.
I think you're a denier. I think you're a containerization denier. I think it's actually so overused. It's in fact infested with multiple copies of every application and multiple copies of.
Yes, on the server side, I don't think there's many people running their desktops that way.
Well, I'm talking mostly command line and server side applications. I'm Telegram, Chrome, Thunderbird. That's all going to be updated from the Solus repo, which they are. I would say they're the most meticulous and particular about packaging of any distro I've ever seen, and they typically, I think, are that way to avoid things like upgrade issues and whatnot. We'll see. I'm not saying it's going to be Solus, because I know there is a good argument to be made for Ubuntu LTS, because then I would also get the advantage of being able to use Flatpaks and snaps, which could also be another way to try to get to this. So I'm not taking LTS out, actually. I just want to be I just want to really enjoy using my workstation too. I don't want it to be just a tool. I want it to be a tool that is nice to use. So that way it's, I don't know, it's fun. But you're right. Maybe I'll reconsider it. I'll think about going to Ubuntu LTS because I think Poby was just playing around with snapping up like SAB NZB, the Usenet client. So it's available as a snap. That kind of stuff that's very valuable. And if that stuff takes off, that could be useful. Nate writes in with a question about switching to Arch. He says, hi, guys. I discovered your show a few weeks back along with Linux Unplugged and User Error. I've been listening to all three in reverse order now for a while now, and I have to say great job overall. You didn't switch me to Linux. I've been using it as my daily driver for a while now, but you did switch me to Arch. Before either of you been using Ubuntu or Fedora, before I'd either been using Ubuntu or Fedora, depending on the machine compatibility. I would typically wind up nuking and paving with the upgrading because I wanted to play with the different distros, but I always wound up on Ubuntu or Fedora at the end. I'd heard of Arch, but never actually played with it and was taking a build from scratch. I thought that'd be a daunting idea. As the new release came around, I had my home tower that doesn't do much on the upgrade list. After listening to your show, I decided to try building it from scratch. Needless to say, I fell in love with it. I only installed what I needed to get the system up and running, plus my stable of programs. Yeah, that's nice. And the KDE desktop. My tower's now running better than ever. There's one problem with it, though. As it boots, I notice it won't mount the swap partition. It doesn't seem to be causing any problems, but I was wondering if this is something you've run into before. Keep up the good work. Nate. No, but Nate, you could try I'm curious if you did from the command line, if you typed swap on, what kind of error message you got back. And check journal. Have you seen that on Arch? It might be something in FS tab.
My swap mounts is fine. Yeah.
Maybe bring up that part in the Arch wiki and go through your FS tab really quick. That's interesting. You know, we got to do another user error. It's interesting that he got all three of those. Those were the ones he went to. We do need to do another user error. And when I was thinking about my Bulletproof desktop, I did consider for a little bit Plasma Desktop LTS. And I'm not sure.
Really?
A little bit, because I like the idea of if I don't want I definitely want my desktop environment to break. But I don't know. GNOME has been so good to me for so long now. And now Budgie's been pretty good. The only thing about Budgie is it's still new. They could end up rewriting that whole thing one time, and I know. But I feel like the other desktop environments are either too much. I don't know. It's because on GNOME you got possible extension breakage. Like I really want something bulletproof. So I was thinking Plasma LTS. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I should I should do Neon LTS. It's because it's Ubuntu based. All right, you got Pierre's?
Pierre writes in, and he says, first of all, congratulations on your work. Second of all, I wanted to share with you a new company that's selling Ultrabook built for Linux. The company allows you to buy the computer with a selection of distros, and from what I know, the distros work flawlessly. Maybe you should look into it and talk about it. And guess what, Chris? From my internet research, I understand that Arch is an option.
So
this is an all-metal. Yeah. This is an all-metal laptop, and it looks like it looks like a very polished machine. I would probably compare it to the Apollo. Has a backlit keyboard, and they let you choose your operating system.
Get an i5 or i7 configurations, 13-inch screen running at 1080, and I'd say it actually looks a lot like the MacBook Air. Look at that.
But it did look like they customized the super key too. It's kind of hard to tell. The very top image, the black one, if you take that, it looks like they added a little tux right above the little Windows thing.
Both.
If I'm seeing that correctly.
Yeah, it does look like they have both.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so it looks like Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Windows, and you say Arch too, huh?
Yeah, that was I can't remember where I saw that. I'm not finding it on their site.
Yeah, they know.
Antigros.
Antigros. Interesting. Yeah, so Ubuntu, Kubuntu, Linux Mint, Debian, or Antigros for the Slimbook.
Antigros.
Slimbook.es.
I thought that was pretty neat.
The Katana and the Classic. Yeah. Good find. Thanks for sending that in, Pierre. You can send us an email by going to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and choose Linux Action Show from the drop-down. Or if you want the whole community to see it, or maybe make sure that it gets in front of both our faces, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. You can also just submit feedback for the thread that will be posted for this episode. Episode, 453? So you can just leave a comment in there, too. I think that's just about everything we had for this week, isn't it, Noah? Yes? Where should people find you online?
I think we have a show. At Kernel Linux on the Twittersphere. And Altaspeed is at Altaspeed, my day job, where we go around serving the Grand Forks community, surrounding areas, and now kind of expanding out past that, doing managed services and networking, all sorts of fun stuff with Linux.
You can find me at Chris LAS, the network, at Jupiter Signal, and check out my vlog, youtube.com/Chris Fisher. You'll probably see some tidbits from behind the scenes of this here episode of the Linux Action Show, as well as a lot of other behind the scenes stuff of the whole dang network at youtube.com/Chris Fisher. Check that out over there. Almost every day during the week I've been posting. I don't really have a strict schedule. And this show is live. You can join us live on Sundays, noon Pacific. You can get it converted to your local time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And jblive.tv is the place to watch it. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. And we'll see you right back here next week. I'll read it a little bit for you for those of you that are too lazy. And I'd love to get your take on this. This is called Blind, a collection of command line video editing utilities. Blind uses a raw video format with a simple container. A file begins with a plain text line containing the number of frames, the width, the height, and the pixel format, all separated by regular blank spaces. It's not just a codec though, Noah. No, my friend. No, my friend. It's also video editing. It's designed for composing new videos. It's not necessarily designed to make small changes because you can do that fast with a graphical editor or with FFmpeg directly. But it's for creating videos without graphics, and it uses sRGB color space. And they go on more and more. It doesn't support audio. They say there's no real they don't see a big need for it when you're using command line video editing.
Okay, sure.
They say it's source friendly, so it's easier to resolve merge conflicts. Rendering can take a very long time with this approach, and one of the features is you can use make to only render parts that have changed. That's fascinating. Think about that for a second. You only have to render the parts of your video that have changed, right? Mm-hmm. No room for buggy GUIs. Less chance that users make a mistake without noticing it. Even old crappy computers can be used for large projects. Very easy to utilize command line image editors to modify frames or use your own tools. What do you think, Noah? What do you think of Blind?
I like it. I think we should make it an app pig. That's what I think.
You are crazy. This is a ridiculous idea on its face. On the concept of this is ridiculous.
Hold on a second. No, it's not.
You are video editing on the command line. You are a madman. Now, if you want to talk about video encoding, you want to talk about cut this part, cut that part with a minute marker, maybe, but it doesn't even support audio.
Okay, so here's where you're wrong. I'll tell you why you're wrong. I'm gonna tell you. Here's the thing. Ready for the thing?
I'm ready.
The thing is, there are certain times where you have like a repetitive video editing workflow and everything happens exactly the same and you just want to repeat that process. And I'll give you a perfect example.
I know, dude, you always use this example. Everybody knows.
The first 1 minute and 5 seconds of every video has to get chopped off, and the last 1 minute and 10 seconds of every video get chopped off. And then after that, you have to take this stock video thing, and it goes right on the front. This stock video thing, and it goes right on the back.
Can I stop you for a second?
And because the audio was recorded separately anyway, and you're making simultaneous changes on the audio, it doesn't actually need to edit the audio. You just gotta.
Bro, I'm gonna let you finish. But
Beyonce had the best Linux distro.
You just co-hosted the Unfiltered show. There's like 115 video clips, an episode of exactly what you just described. And I do it every day. I clip them. Yeah, I only take this minute to this minute. I don't alter anything else about it.
But it's different every time, though. The minute marker thing is different every time. It's not exactly removing the first 1 minute and 5 seconds and exactly removing.
Well, here's the thing, Noah. Either way, right. I won because the beard owes me a sandwich now because we bet that I said that you would totally be into this, and he said that no way, common sense and practicality will prevail. Even Noah will not find this to be a good idea. And I was right. You did think it was a good idea. So therefore, I think I won the sandwich. Either way, Chris happy. The conversation, because Rikai was like, Rikai literally, and how often does this happen, literally laughed out loud when he read the premise. Like he thought it was so ridiculous, he actually laughed out loud. He was looking at his phone and laughs out loud.
There are people that edit in the command line.
I know. We know him. We know the guy. We know that guy.
Listen, we don't need your stinking graphical GUIs. We got sure shows a good command line program. You can't see that.
Nobody ever makes a mistake in the middle of the presentation that needs to be cut out. That never happens.
There we go. So There, now you can see here how tough
Oh my God, is this happening?
my britches are. Now, I gotta tell you, we edit them videos in the command line, and we don't have any needs for your graphical nonsense, okay? Can you use a graphical video editor over SSH DigitalOcean Droplet? I don't think so. I don't think you can do that. You need to power the command line to do this.
I could have a faster editing rig. Is that George Bush?
What? I don't know.
I think that was George Bush. I think Bush just stopped by to talk about video editing. We're good here. Tide comes in, tide comes out.
Let's go live. Okay. All right.
Hey, Noah. Okay, all right. Now, get your headphones on straight. Hold on, get your headphones on straight.
All right.
Come on, 1960s, let's go.
right.
Hey, quit screwing around. Quit.
All
Hey,
right. Does that look
hey.
better? Does that look better?
Damn it, would you quit screwing around? It's time for the news.
All right.